Ah yes, the elitist wet dream, Legend of the Galactic Heroes. A show broad both in scale and characters, known for being the longest OVA series of all time and also the best space opera of all time. Is it as good as people make it out to be? Honestly, who cares? I'm just here today to tell you why I personally enjoy it. Now there's a lot to unpack here when tackling a show like this. So let's start with the premise. We're thrown in the faraway future, right as two opposing forces, the Galactic Empire and the Free Planets Alliance, are in the midst of a fierce battle for space domination. We're immediately introduced to about 100 characters, which may seem overwhelming for most people, and then treated to some marvelously strategic space battles, seen from the perspective of both sides. This may not seem like much at first, but in reality it builds upon the show's central and most interesting theme, which is, there is no right or wrong when it comes to war. In most other stories, we are clearly being told from the beginning, these are the good guys and these are the evil guys, which can make everything painfully predictable. There is none of that in Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Instead, they are just people, regular people who fight for what they believe is right. I'd also like to mention the interesting way in which the show provides exposition. We learn about the world's history as one of the characters watches a documentary about it. Not only that, but the entirety of the show is narrated by a historian from the future, keeping track of all the dates and events, making everything feel like a giant history lesson. We are given great insight on both the Empire and the Alliance's morality and philosophy. We see the good parts and the shortcomings of each one, and we understand why they believe in the things they believe in. It also helps that there are clear inspirations taken from real-life government systems, particularly democracy and imperialism, being a parallel to the Alliance and the Empire respectively. Both sides feel like they have a lot of history and culture behind them. The Empire is similar to a Germanic society from the Middle Ages, while the Alliance is more grounded and reminiscent of our own. To further emphasize the difference between the two, let's take a look on how each of them treat women. On the Empire side, women are still damsels in distress, only attending parties and not concerning themselves with war and politics in any way. On the Alliance side, women have equal rights to men, even down to being allowed to join the army and fight alongside them. It's little things like this that matter in the long run, making the world more alive and believable. Speaking of things that are alive and believable, it's about time I talk about the characters, which are undoubtedly my favorite part of the show. Despite a large cast, each character gets a fair amount of screen time, and by the end of it you will care about pretty much all of them. Which is sad, because a lot of them end up dying. That's right, plot armor does not exist in this universe, so prepare to have your heart broken after you see your favorite characters violently murdered. Ah, fun times. In all seriousness now, the characters are amazing. You get a sense of who everyone is, what their hobbies are, and how they interact with other characters. They feel human, and it's yet again the little things that stuck with me after finishing the show. Like Royenthal and Mittermeier hanging out and sharing a whiskey, or Mecklinger's passion for art, or the fun teasing between Poplan and Dusty. These are just a few examples, but there's a character in here to appreciate for pretty much anyone. Now, how about we take a look at the show's two poster boys, Yang Wenli and Reinhard von Lohengram. Reinhard was born in a family of poor nobles, his father having to sell his sister to the Kaiser to be his concubine. Reinhard then joins the military with his childhood friend Kirchheis, and swears death upon the nobles, wanting to overthrow the system and free his sister. Yang Wenli on the other hand wanted to become a historian and live a peaceful life, but due to his living circumstances he had to join the army for free education and quickly made a name for himself as a brilliant commander. In contrast to the serious and uptight Reinhard, Yang is relaxed and carefree most of the time, even during battles, as seen even in the way he sits. Yang doesn't have a clear end goal other than he wants this war to end in order to live his so desired peaceful life. Despite their differences, both of them have a mutual respect for each other. That is seen in numerous occasions when one of them could have easily cornered and defeated the other, but they didn't, wanting to give each other an honorable defeat in battle instead. Now, about those large-scale space battles, they're pretty damn great, especially at the beginning when they were more strategy based. They do get more simplistic later on, but they're always entertaining. However, the main highlight of these battles for me is the freaking axe combat! It's gory, it's brutal, and it's murder! While the show's animation isn't that groundbreaking, the fight scenes have a lot of care and detail put into them, making every encounter memorable. But more than anything, these scenes show us the grotesque and ugly side of war. People die in horrible ways in every battle. The man whom you called a friend yesterday could be just a corpse tomorrow, and that's just the way it is in war. There are also plenty of locations, from the comfortable futuristic society of Fezzan to the dystopian wasteland that is Earth. And let me just tell you, the soundtrack is spectacular. It features original orchestral tracks and also some classic tunes from artists such as Beethoven, Verdi and Mozart. I feel like the music syncs well with the battles. which enhances the overall experience so much more. On that note, I'd also like to mention the wonderful openings and endings, which I still listen to from time to time. Some might not like the openings for their infamous use of English, but I for one think it gives them their own charm. Now, as for things I didn't enjoy so much, first of all there is the pacing. I never found myself particularly bored while watching the series, but I'd say it takes about 26 episodes for the plot to really start moving. After that it flows quite smoothly. Animation isn't exactly one of the show's strengths either. I really dig the aesthetic and the designs, but the animation itself can be really bad at times, especially during season 1. Some scenes were so poorly animated that, in fact, they got another studio to redo them, which made the matters even worse, because the show keeps switching between two different art styles which clash horribly. Luckily enough, the problem doesn't persist past season 1. The only thing I had a problem with story-wise was the Earth Cult. We didn't find out almost anything about them, despite them being a big part of the show and being responsible for some game-changing events. I can understand that the author's intent wasn't to focus on objectively evil characters, but I still found it kind of lackluster. Overall, I'd say this show has some of the best things a medium of anime has to offer. You just have to tackle it with patience and an open mind in order to have a great time.